Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Rachel Burden and Charlie State.
And our headlines today.
Right, time now is 7:38. More than 2.5 million people thought to be most at risk from coronavirus are to be offered free vitamin D supplements.
Let's talk now to the GP, Dr. Sarah Jarvis, who joins us from West London. How are you this morning, Sarah?
I'm very well indeed, thank you, and have taken my vitamin D supplement, which I do every day.
Yes. Now, this is something that's been talked about for a long time in relation to coronavirus. What's the evidence behind it?
So we've known for a long time that vitamin D, firstly, regulates at least 1,000 genes in the body, including some which affect your immune system. So it is involved in the good, solid functioning of your immune system. We also know that probably more than 50% of the population have insufficient levels during the winter, and that probably 1 in 6 are severely deficient in the winter and spring. And that's because at least 90% of the vitamin D that we get, unlike other vitamins which we can eat and drink, particularly eat, at least 90% of vitamin D comes from the action of sunshine on our skins. A lot of us been getting less sunshine this year. The government already recommends that everybody should consider taking a supplement during the winter of 10 micrograms, that's 400 international units, and that if you're at high risk because you don't get out in the sun, you should do it all year round. So this is just extending that. There was one study in September rather, which suggested that vitamin D at high doses might reduce your risk of going into intensive care. NICE has said there's not conclusive evidence, but it's not going to do any harm.
And Sarah, is this particularly pertinent to people, Black, Asian, minority, ethnic people as well?
Yeah. It absolutely is. There are several groups who are at higher risk. So people who cover up for religious reasons, people who have darker skins because they make vitamin D less effectively in their skins. Also people like me, because I'm completely paranoid about the sun. So people with very pale skin may be at higher risk. That's why I take a supplement. And anyone who is generally unwell, housebound, all the time inside, because all of those are either going to get less vitamin D or, in the case of people of BAME origin, may make less of it.
Sarah, morning to you. Good to see you're feeling better, because I know last time we spoke, you're a little bit croaky, if I remember rightly. So that's good. We watched the doctor getting better, which is always nice to see. Can I just run through a thought with you? People are getting quite a lot of news which sends them in different directions. So on the one hand, we have the wonderful news that the R rate has come down between 0.9 and 1. So we have that bit of good news. We also have the news about the vaccines, which is progressing. And then, of course, we have the sobering 521 deaths were reported. This was Friday, within 28 days of a positive test. We hear those warnings about hospitals and about hospital beds. It's a challenging times in terms of how people think about where we are in the midst of the pandemic.
You're absolutely right. And of course, the thing to bear in mind is that there is always a lag between people getting infected, hospital beds being filled, and then deaths. So, of course, the good news is the stuff that's just happening as a result of that lag. So the R number going down to between 0.9 and 1, which means that numbers shouldn't increase and can start to come down, is because we've been in lockdown and previously had the tiers. But deaths take a little bit longer. People have to get the infection. Younger people usually start it, then they pass it to older people, then they go into hospital, then they die. So after a few weeks, we've had several weeks in lockdown, and we know tier 3 makes a big difference, as Liverpool has seen. They've gone down to tier 2 because their numbers came down. Tier 1 sadly made virtually no difference at all. So we do need to ramp things up. What we now know is that we need to remember not to take our foot off the pedal. We cannot be complacent. Things are getting better because of the measures that we've taken. So a vaccine is just around the corner. You will, I really hope, be able to hug your dad or your granny or whoever safely come maybe as soon as February. And that's really positive news, but that's February. That's not now.
Yeah, and on that theme, I mean, on the R rate, how many people? So the 0.9 to 0.1 means it's only one person. Now, it's a very much a theoretical figure, isn't it? Because if you were in a room, and we look at Christmas, for example, if you're in a room and someone has it, it hasn't changed how infectious it is. I mean, And it's very important. Maybe I'm stating the obvious. It's really important that people think about that.
It's hugely important. And Charlie, you're not stating the obvious at all. Sadly, a lot of people are now saying, oh, we'll be fine. We've got a vaccine around the corner. We don't need to worry. Actually, you can still get ill before the vaccine comes along. We know a lot more about the virus than we did in March when we first went into lockdown. Ventilation is going to be really key. I know it's winter, I know it's Christmas, but not just keeping your distance, not just washing your hands regularly, not just possibly wearing face coverings even if you're in the home, if you're with someone very vulnerable. But again, getting really close and hugging granny is hugely going to increase their risk, whereas ventilating the room, allowing lots of air to pass through, dramatically reduces the risk far more than we thought it did in March, because in March we didn't know about aerosol spread.
Yeah. That is really significant. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Jarvis, for your time this morning. The sage advice over a safe Christmas and how to celebrate is pretty strict.
Well, they're getting down to some real specifics,
Well,
aren't
yeah. I mean, it's quizzes, not Monopoly. So no
That's
board
right.
games where you're passing the pieces round, avoiding hugs, kisses, handshakes, no singing or dancing, particularly both at the same time, Charlie. So that's going to severely curtail your usual Christmas activities. Sorry about that.
7:44 is time. Louise got the details for us of
We'll
the
just
weather.
have to do it now, Charlie. Get it out of the way.
We'll just stay with
Morning,
you there. We'll
everybody.
just let that carry on for as long as you.
No, let's
Have we got
move on
music
to
ready?
the
Have we got
weather.
music to help, Louise?
No, in my head all the time,
Good.
but sadly not in the studio. I'm trying to deflect from this pretty grey, gloomy story that I've got to tell you about, unfortunately. But this is a fair indication of what most of us have got this morning. This is West Sussex. You can see low cloud, misty, murky. There's
Iran has blamed Israel for the assassination of the scientist who's believed to have masterminded the country's nuclear weapons programme.
In a letter to the UN Security Council, Tehran said it reserved the right to defend its people and its interests. Our security correspondent, Gordon Carrera, has this report.
Morning, it's Saturday the 28th of November. Here's our top story then. Just days before England's national lockdown ends, MPs are being told that hospitals could be overwhelmed if they don't back new restrictions.
The comments from the Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove come as the lockdown is to be replaced by the return of 3 tiers. That happens on Wednesday. The tiers are tougher than they were when first introduced and are being opposed by some Conservative backbenchers. Here's our political correspondent, Jonathan Blake, executive of NHS Providers.
I'm going to talk to the SNP about their party conference in a moment or two, but we'll get the weather first. Louise Lear is here with all the details this morning. Bit grey, bit dull today, right? Now, across England, residents and businesses are coming to terms with what the new tiers will mean when they come into effect on Wednesday.
One place that has seen a dramatic change in restrictions is the county of Kent, which went into the month-long national lockdown in Tier 1, but will come out in Tier 3.
Now, the village of Groombridge is split in two, half in Kent and half in East Sussex, which will be in Tier 2. Piers Hopkirk reports.